All right, so it's now time. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Again, my name is Alex here from Expert Hats. I definitely want to thank you for joining this live. With this, I hope this is just the first technical session that you get to enjoy of this new series that I'm putting out there. I want to make sure that, this is useful for you and that you find enjoyment in it. I want to make sure that this is a place that you can continue growing and learning, whether you're looking for technical skills or adding a new skill to your toolbox, or just talking about what it takes to really be successful in IT, because that's really my goal throughout all of this and helping you be able to succeed in your tech career. So with that being said, the first thing that I want to identify and really talk about that is so critical to being good into IT or being a good technical person is having a good lab. And it's important to understand the need for a lab. Now, maybe you're somewhere like, well, I don't need a lot of hardware, or I don't have hardware, Alex. I only have a single system. Hey, that's not a problem at all. So what I want you to really think about is, what is a lab? Why do I need one? Right? So let's go. We're going to get into some of those reasoning points, because a good lab is something that will absolutely help you. You see, a good lab communicates that it is something showing that you are investing in yourself. I would say the reason why you need a good lab is because it's a must if you really are serious in building real technical skills. It'll help you gain real hands-on experience, which you can communicate in an interview. It is something that, says, hey, you know what? I have my home lab. I experiment all the time. I install software all the time. I know how to manage environments. And this is especially critical if you don't have paid work experience. So learning in the lab is huge. It gives you that insider edge, that insider knowledge to whatever it is that you're trying to do. Because it is experience that you can communicate in an interview. It's something that you communicate, and it becomes extremely valuable as you're learning new skills. So definitely encourage you to take this topic, and really think about it. It really helps to show that you are investing in yourself. And that's really the message that you want to communicate, that you're trying to keep up to date. Technology moves fast. Guess what? The person across that desk from you in the interview also knows that technology is moving fast. And so having a home lab is going to give you that edge in conversation. It'll also give you a place to learn safely. It's a safe space, and that's important, because a lot of times what will end up happening is, as you're experimenting with a new skill, you don't want to experiment in someone else's environment. You don't want to experiment on someone else's computer. No, but learning those concepts on your own hardware, on your own computer, will give you that edge, right? And there's many more intangible benefits that you're just going to get as part of having your own lab. So I encourage you to really consider building one or installing one. Now, the next question you're going to be ask yourself is, all right, how much? Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is labs do not need to be an expensive or large investment with lots of hardware, just like you see here, right? No, you don't need that. Honestly, it can just be your primary computer, because your goal, especially like if you don't have a home lab, is to just keep it simple. You don't need massive amounts of stuff. Instead, work with what you have. And if you do need more stuff, guess what? I get it all the time. I got friends and family that what they do is they got tons of computers just sitting in a closet collecting dust, right? Well, maybe they'll just give it to you. And that'll be good for learning hardware. It'll good learning what a processor is, learning the different components. You can tear it up without feeling guilty. That's huge, right? And that's the learning experience that you need when you want something hands-on without really being able or having to buy something. Now, if you do need to buy something, I found that Facebook Marketplace and eBay are great sources of just used stuff. Obviously, if you're ready for that next step in your lab and you're looking for upgraded storage and X, Y, and Z, obviously that's when you start looking at other stores like Best Buy, Micro Center, Newegg.com, Amazon has great deals, that type of thing. Cancel. Yeah, she's always listening. So, just something to think about as you're going through this. Now, okay, so now we talked about why you should probably have a lab and how much and what it really takes. The next question you should probably ask yourself is, why do I need a lab, and what are the key items to building a good lab? All right, let's get into it. Because the way I would break this down is, first you want to have a purpose for the lab. Then you look at hardware, software, and I'm going to give you some online resources, and understanding that your lab should be flexible, and it should be something that you can then keep alive, because a stale lab won't do you any good. All right, so let's get right into it. When we start talking about a purpose, I always like to approach anything I'm learning with a question. What am I trying to do? How do I install an operating system? How do I install a video card? How can I build a storage server? How can I set up a server operating system? How can I set up a development environment if I'm going into a development or scripting or any of those other things that are really important? So being able to, before you get started, just building a quick checklist on paper or a notepad or wherever you keep your notes, it's just going to help you be able to kind of focus in on what you're trying to do, and make a question, because that's the best place to get started. And there's tons of pre-built labs out there that you can actually do. There's virtual labs. There is labs and scripts that you can actually download that, pretty much stand up the lab for you. And that's one of the things that we'll be talking about here in a little bit. But know that each of those require resources. They require certain technology and requirements. And so understanding what you're trying to do is going to help you not get lost and start building something that honestly you may or may not need. All right. So really think about your purpose there and be able to plan that out. Then from there, you got to look at your hardware. Now, the reality is you only need one computer to build out a lab. You can build out a virtual lab, and that can be on Windows or Mac using some kind of virtualization software, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And usually I recommend at least 16 gigs of RAM if you have it. Although if you look at your system, oftentimes a lot of the newer systems come with 6 or 8 gigs, you can absolutely do this as well. It's just how much of a lab you have is going to be dependent on that hardware. Additionally, storage is one of those things that you're always going to butt up against. And, I recommend at least 128 gig SSD most of the time. That most new laptops have that. But if you have a regular, 500 gig spinning disk hard drive, that shouldn't be a problem at all. All right. Remember, your purpose drives your lab requirements. So maybe at some point it gets into a really massive requirements, but that doesn't have to be the case today. Okay. And that's what I really want you to think about. Now, additionally, when we start talking about software, well, you have lots of great options. And one of my favorite ones is actually one that was just announced, I would say just a few months ago, that VMware, one of the leading virtualization providers, they're giving their Workstation Pro and their VMware Fusion away for free for personal use, which is great for us because it's such an easy piece of software to use. It helps you because it's a personal license. It's great for a lab purpose. And so definitely want to make sure that you're able to take advantage of that. And here's the link for that particular piece of software. And if you want to know exactly how to do that, I have a different video, because trust me, I tried actually doing it and it took a good part, anywhere from 30 to an hour to do. So I have a video out there. I'll put a link in the description or in the chat, and just make sure that you have that so that you can be able to build one for yourself. Now, the nice thing about VMware Pro is that you install VMware Workstation Pro if you're running Windows, and if you're running a Mac, you can actually install VMware Fusion. And both of those are now available for free. So I walk you in that video step by step, so you'll have that and be able to build that yourself. Now, the other options that you may have is actually on your Windows machine. If you're running Windows 10 or even Windows 11, chances are you can simply enable what a technology called Hyper-V. And that's Microsoft's built-in virtualization platform. They use it in professional service environments. They use it for servers. They use it in Microsoft Azure, running their entire cloud environment. Very, very powerful. So if you want a server professional type of software, Hyper-V is going to be it. And the other thing is, a lot of the labs that are out there, you can actually just build it on Hyper-V. So something to think about, keep in mind, you might be able to use both, or maybe you have one computer that is running Hyper-V while you have another computer that's running VMware Workstation Pro. Give yourself some flexibility there. Here we also have Oracle VirtualBox, very, very common and very popular one. At this point, I would almost stray away from it because I like VMware Workstation Pro, but that's a personal preference, all right? You use what you got, and there's nothing wrong with VirtualBox. And then you're going to need additional software like operating systems and other applications. So Microsoft Evaluation Center is perfect for a lab because a lot of times you can get that software with 90-day, 180-day licenses, trial licenses, and you can get it just for free. And it's the real stuff. It's not handicapped, and you can really be able to take advantage of that particular software. So I encourage you to check that out. And then if you're a dev, if you're going down the dev route and you're learning how to script, if you don't have VS Code, Visual Studio Code installed, you absolutely need it. It's a great tool that you can install right on your system or within a virtual machine in your new lab, and be able to kind of run code safely in that instance against that computer without damaging your primary system. So something to think about. Additional online resources for you that are great learning resources, especially as you're building out your lab. YouTube is great. Microsoft has learn.microsoft.com. GitHub has great resources for learning. And if you just want to learn code, code.visualstudio.com/learn is a great free resource. Now there's tons of other resources. Honestly, a Google search, a ChatGPT search, any of that stuff will point you in the right direction when it comes to free learning, because the reality is you have tons of education available at your fingertips. You just may not realize it. So that's one of the things that I want to encourage you to kind of check out and keep learning. Building your lab can be fun, and keeping it alive can be fun. All right, so next is flexibility. Here, what I want you to understand is using virtual machines means that you don't need to buy hardware each time you need to learn a different skill. You can reuse the same hardware, you can reuse the same operating systems, the same virtual machines, or you can go ahead and build new ones. And that's the nice thing about virtualizing. You can tear it down, stand it back up, and just as all based off what you're trying to do. The other thing is, I encourage you when we talk about flexibility, you can build a lab that's professional. Heck, you can build a full data center in your basement. I know I have friends that have exactly that. Do you need it? Not necessarily. But there's going to be times where as you enjoy your lab, it becomes more of a hobby for you or just something that you feel like you need to extend. Add hardware only if you really need to. A dedicated lab server running lots of virtual machines all the time, running 100% is an example of that, right? Like previously I mentioned, maybe you need one system with Hyper-V and another system with VMware Pro. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to run your lab on a real server, don't go out and buy something from Dell or HP for your lab. eBay is a great source. Just buy something used. A lot of times companies will retire their fully functional servers that are coming off lease within 3 to 4 or even 5 years old. that hardware for enterprise is overkill for a lab a lot of times, and it still works. So don't let the age confuse you. Computers can last a long time. Now you may need to buy a couple parts like storage and things like that. Just depends on what you're getting. So just something to keep in mind. The other thing is to keep alive. Now I made a couple of references to this. You want to recall that labs are only as useful as the last time you used it. Time passes, and so you need to rebuild it at times. And I find that myself. Oftentimes I'll go through the work of building out a new lab, building out like 3 or 4 servers, maybe even a storage server, and then it sits there because I already kind of learned what I needed to do. It sits there. And so next time I go to actually use it, because I maintain it or keep it up to date, now I almost have to rebuild it, right? Now, when it's virtualization, it's not that big deal. If you're doing it on hardware, and that becomes a little more big deal. So I recommend at least look at your lab quarterly, just check it out, make sure it's still good, any updates, especially like if you're using temporary licensing, that's where that can really get something to watch out for. And then consider hardware expansion if you have more long-term needs. I would definitely say that, keep that in mind. And that goes along with the previous slide of really only get what you need. All right. Now, if you want more information, I encourage you to continue. Hey, join us every Tuesday at 8 p.m. We're going to go live. I encourage you to check out our new Facebook group where, Expert Hats Tech Training Corner, where you're going to learn lots of tech skills as well as other skills around what's needed to be successful in tech. I'll put that link in the chat. And just give you another reference and another place to learn, because there's lots of places that'll help you, and lots of groups dedicated to helping you just learn, or even talking about getting a new job. I want to focus on helping you gain skills. All right. And so hopefully that you find that valuable. I also put a link here to how to install VMware Workstation and build 2 Windows 11 virtual machines. It's a 30-minute video. I did speed up some parts of it because it took me about an hour to get done. So all the links I'll make available. All this information is in the Facebook group. So, if you want easy access to this, including links to the videos, as well as a lot more content coming over time, feel free to join us there. So with that, I definitely want to thank you for joining me today on this live session. And, I look forward to talking with each of you in my new Facebook group. So I'll see you over there. Take care.